Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem. Now just before we jump into our arting today, I've got a few things to say. First of all, thank you so much for everyone that has submitted a picture for my grand's 98th birthday. We're still not at 98 pictures, so if you are thinking about participating and emailing me a colouring or an artwork of yours, please do, because I would absolutely love it if we made it to the target of 98 pictures. They do need to be in by the 21st of February. That gives me a week to edit the video together. I'm going to share that as a bonus video on a Tuesday so you guys can see what I'm sending to my gran for her birthday. I'm also still taking suggestions for the next stash series. I will link the video down below in the description, but I'll also put it at the end card so that you can leave your comment under that particular video. So if you have an art supply that you'd like me to buy or an item you'd like me to try out, we have £50 to spend, and as you know by now, once everybody has made their suggestions, I make a shortlist and you guys get to vote. Lastly, just with the flow of things in the stash shop, I've decided that if I'm going to put new items into the stash shop, it will be on a Sunday morning, just before the Sunday video goes live. So if you're looking for something in particular that I've maybe mentioned in a video, it will be there Sunday mornings, and obviously that's UK time. So for you guys that are elsewhere, you might have to set an alarm. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. We're going to go to top-down view now, and we can get going. So we're going on a little bit of a watercolour adventure today. I have to apologise in advance. I have blue nails. This is from an antibiotic spray that we use for our animals, and it stains your nails. So my hands are clean, but I've just got a really grotty looking blue set of nails. Anywho, we're going to do a bit of watercolouring today, and I don't really know where this is going. This is one of these little random adventures. I am trying out my paint puck for the first time, so you can see that is stuck down. There is water in there, and that is to clean your paintbrushes on. Someone gifted this to me, and I was really excited to try one because I'd heard of them and never had a shot. So we'll see how clean our brushes stay after having a go at that. The reason that I wanted to do watercolour today was I have these tricolour Aqua markers from Spectrum Noir. These came, I do believe it was up crate, and I took a little bit of a holiday from doing the art prompt challenges in the subscription boxes at Christmas because of Cavemas, and then I had a break in the new year, so I haven't had a chance to play with these yet. So I thought we could create an artwork with these, but in addition to that, I do have the star colours that belong to Julia Kay of Julia Kay Art Studios, and these are colour flip paints. I don't know if that's what they call them, but basically they look a different colour in the light depending on which way you tip them, and it's these ones down the bottom here. I really wanted to create a magical tree with them, but I've been doing a lot of trees lately, so I thought we could incorporate these colours with the markers and just see what we can come up with. So I've got the, this is the Artful watercolour paper here, and I'm just going to do a bit of testing with this. I am going to do, whatever we end up as a finished drawing today is going to be on this Clairefontaine watercolour paper, but I just wanted a big sheet to work on to remind myself about these colours because it's been a little while since I've actually done anything. So just the usuals here. I've got my one of my favourite paintbrushes, which is the Jackson's Quill brush, and this is the 10-stroke 0. This is the smallest one you can get, and it's one of my very favourites. So I thought we could just start by having a look at the colours that are available, first of all, in the markers. I will be putting these in the stash shop when I'm finished. Watercolour markers, much as they're fun and they're very nice, they're not something that I would use on a regular basis. I have plenty of actual watercolour, and I just feel that they'd be put to better use elsewhere. So if this is something that takes your fancy, if you keep a little eagle eye out in the stash shop, these will appear at some point. I like it, there seems to be quite a lot of pigment here. I'm having trouble getting rid of that original stroke, so that's something to just keep in my little head as we go along. So there's our 3 blue shades. Because these are the tri-blend markers, you're getting 3 colours from the same colour family, and the idea is obviously that they're supposed to blend together. However, we could just use them as straight watercolour, and that's going to be pretty good. So that's the cool marine set of colours. Matches my stained nail, incidentally. Good gem. And we've got the Botanic Natural colours. Okay then. Oh, look at that. Look at this bad boy. Ooh, that's really bright. Wow. I wasn't expecting that to be as vibrant as that. I don't know, I did test these out before, but that was a couple of months ago. Lots happened in the last month or two. Oh, there we go. We're more into my kind of colours here. Some of them seem a bit more reluctant to shift than others, so that is something to note. They are quite juicy, these markers, though. Oh, that was far too much water. Ooh, yeah, I feel as if I'm having to scrub at that a fair bit. I always feel with these markers as well that they behave differently on different papers. I never really sort of pass judgment just on one type of paper, but it seems to be, you know, they seem to be quite stubborn, which, you know, it's like, well, what do you want me to do with these? So then we've got a set of sort of purpley colours. What do they call these one? Rich floral, okay. See, that pink doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. Some of them have a magenta shade. I never actually read the box. Oh, see, that looks as if it's quite happy to disappear down to wherever. Enjoy portable watercolour effects with these brush tips. 3 water-soluble colours. Mix and blend out effortlessly. You think? Okay. Perfect for sketching and colouring on the go. There is a set of instructions or something in the bottom of here. Come out! Okay, so colour charts and mixing colours. Kind of standard fare. Know your markers. Colours can be blended and diffused on the art surface or mixed in a palette for an almost endless variety of hues, tints and tones. Now see, my thing is I do have a palette here, a ceramic palette. I'll just pop it down there. If I do this, I'll just put these lids back on just now so that I don't make a mess of anything. If I take my brush now and do this and just use it as normal watercolour, which is great, right? That's wonderful, superb, beautiful. What's the point in having them in marker form? If I'm going to do this in a palette, I might as well just use actual watercolour and they will blend out better. So I'm always quite sort of dubious of this. If you're a marker person and you want a watercolour type effect, then absolutely, I think these are great. I just don't see me personally having much use for these. They have blended out to a degree. I'm not saying that they're not blending out, but I'm just a bit kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put down a really dark colour and I'm going to show you the star colours from Julia over the top because they look, you can see them a lot more, especially on camera, on a dark surface. Oh, there's such a massive hair. I'm taking a guess at a pip hair. I can tell the difference between Jock and Pip's hairs because Pip's are a lot straighter. Jock's are quite kind of like kinky. Yeah, the crinkly, not kinky, crinkly. Whereas Pip's are much straighter. So if I just do this, I might as well give myself a big area to work in here. Pip's just pacing about. Pip, what's wrong? She might need to go to the toilet. We're not as free flowing with the toilet breaks because it is now. It's been snowing every day since the 28th of January, and today is the 13th of February. It's Saturday. So we're not leaving doors open for the dogs to waddle in and out because it's too freaking cold. The snow's blowing in the door. I think today might be the day that we actually don't physically get snowed on. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent here. Okay, this is fairly dry, so I can now show you these starry colours. I keep saying starry colours because that's the Gansai Tambi paints and I shouldn't be doing that. These are available for Julia K Art Studio. I do have the dot cards of these colours, so like the sample cards for sale in the stash shop. You can check them out over on the website and you can buy these half pans from Julia directly. I'll leave links to all of that in the description down below. Now you're not going to be able to see these as I'm doing them, but just give it time. I will show you in just a moment. I do find that you need to have a fair amount of water on the go. You know, you do have to let them soften to really pick up some of that nice shifting glittery pigment. Oh, so good. It feels so good. But the thing is, if you mix these with other paints, obviously it's going to give you that colour shift on the other paints. But also when you tip your finished piece in the light, you're going to get this lovely but subtle shimmer effect. I'm really not into like really blingy glitter. It's not my thing. And I know lots of people that love glitter and tell you there's no such thing as too much glitter. I am definitely more on the subtle side of things. So these paints are right up my alley. Like, they really are. And we've also got Luna here, which is a metallic paint. It's not a colour shift one. It's just a silvery one. So we'll let those dry just now, and while they're drying, we will think about what we're actually going to paint today. So I'm just going to go, I'm not going to do a lot of thumbnailing or anything. I say this is more of like a little adventure today rather than let's plan out a drawing. So I've got the Clairefontaine paper. Again, I think I got this in a subscription box. It's nice paper. I'm quite happy to watercolour on it. It's quite textured, this paper, but that's half the fun because I like the texture. And I need to grab myself a pencil. So I'm just going to go... I'm going to use an F pencil. It's a very light, fine pencil, hence F for fine. One of my favourite pencils to sketch with. I was thinking about some sort of flower, but because we've got these, you know, these markers, that's kind of like, it makes sense. When you see the colour palette all together, even on the box, it makes me think flowers straight away, aside from the fact there's an actual flower on the box. Because you've got greens, you've got purples, pinks and blues, so that's perfect. I want this to be, well, we'll just call it a Gem or a Colour Cave branded flower. So it's going to be a made-up flower because that's more fun as well. Just now, obviously, I am quite inspired by the fact that there is a lot of snow here. We are used to having a little bit of snow in Scotland at this time of year, but this year is unprecedented. We're like in 4 feet of snow, not just, you know, like a casual powdering, and we've had the lowest recorded temperatures since like 1800 and something. We hit minus 18.6 degrees the other night in Celsius. So for you Fahrenheit people, that's roughly -1 Fahrenheit, so it's pretty cold. I know, listen Canadians, I know you're all like, oh, it's -40, but we're just really not prepared for this sort of weather, because, and again, it's been going on for like 2 weeks now, so we're getting pretty tired of it. I haven't had any mail in 10 days, and I haven't had my rubbish bins emptied in nearly a fortnight now. So yeah, we're coping really well. Anyway, I digress once again. So my thinking is that maybe we will incorporate a flower with a snowy background, and I was inspired by this. I was out walking the dogs the other day, and I just walked them down the track, like from the farm to the main road, and there are daffodil sprouts coming up out the ground and amongst the snow. I had a wee chat with them, and I was like, listen, daffodils, you're a bit premature here. Just stay down there for a little while longer. So I was thinking maybe this magical gem flower just sprouts up in amongst the snow because it likes to bring a bit of colour in a white landscape or something like that. And I thought with these spangly colours that we've got here, that would make a really nice sort of glistening effect on the snow, and maybe the flowers themselves are a little bit magical. So that's the story behind it. That's what I'm sticking to. And we'll have a little think about what we're going to do here. So I'll zoom in a wee bit so you can see my paper. I'll move this palette just now just because it's casting a shadow. I'm trying to use, I like to work in natural light as much as possible because I'm quite prone to headaches, and I'm taking advantage of the reflection of the sun off the snow just now. When we think about the rough structure of a flower, got a middle, we've got petals, and then we've got a stalk or a stem, and then maybe some leaves of some description, and maybe some other bits and pieces round about. So that's, you know, the absolute dead basics of it. So thinking about the background, it is going to be mostly snow, and maybe it's in like our daffodils, maybe it's in like some sort of embankment, you know, like up a grass verge that's covered in snow or whatever. So this could literally, like in behind could just be all white, it could be all snow. And we can add in a little bit of shadow and things just to make it look like that. And then we could use a glistening, maybe the blue glisten on it to make it look more snowy. So thinking about my colours here, and I'm just going to refer back to the box because it's right beside me. I was thinking maybe we'll stick to the greens for the stem and whatnot. Let's make it, you know, something realistic about it. But I was thinking in the centre, maybe in the centre it's like some sort of like ice crystal or something that grows. So, you know, we could have like a proper diamond shaped, you know, something or other. And maybe that's the centre of the flower, and maybe that's why it can grow in the snow. And then some sort of petals. And maybe they like form a protective cocoon to protect this centrepiece from blizzards. There we go, see? Got an answer for everything. So it's like a hardy Scottish flower. Obviously it's going to be hardy because everything in Scotland has to be hardy if it wants to grow any time of the year. And we'll have maybe a couple of these petals down the front like this, and maybe they could be a different, I want them to be quite spaced out though, because I do want to be able to see the jewel in the middle. And then maybe these all come down to like a little weird trumpet shape, and maybe it's got a collar on it. And you know, like, I love doing stuff like this. See, just being able to make things up as I go along. I find it very liberating and refreshing, and because a lot of the time, like, although everything's very light-hearted here in the cave, it is, you know, I do try and, oh, that sounds really patronising. I was going to say I do try and make things educational, but I do try and make sure that everyone can learn something from what I'm doing, and I do try to include any sort of technical aspects. So it is really nice just to be able to go, I wonder what happens if we do this. So let's give it a couple of leaves. Now we'll make them a bit more interesting in shape. Maybe they look like hands. Like, maybe it's like, because when it's sprouted up out the ground, it's like a little pair of jazz hands, and they go, da-da, I'm a flower. See? This is what I mean. Like, this is fun. That's funny. Surely that's funny. Yeah, so maybe that's what that looks like. Da-da! There's one jazz hand, but it's actually a leaf. Ah, is it weird that I'm enjoying this already? Be really good to practice your hand drawing anatomy as well. I'm terrible at drawing hands, like human hands. And then we could have just a couple of tufts of grass. They're growing out like this. Okay, I really like this idea, but I want the flower to be a lot bigger. Okay, right, so let's take a look at these paints again. Right, now if I tilt that and they're like, wow. Right, do you see what I'm talking about these paints? They are something else, and they are freaking awesome. So when we have them on a white background like this, it's just going to look like a normal painting, which is nice, and then when you tip it, all of a sudden it's going to be all spangly, and that's kind of what excites me about them, and what I like about them. So I'm thinking about colours now. So as I said, I think I'm going to stick with green for the stock. I think I want these purple and pinks for the actual stone in the middle, and we'll use the blues for the petals, and then we can put Julia's paints on top of them once they are dry. I think I'll start with this, no, let's start with the yellowish colour, and I'm just going to put that onto my palette and give that a good squish down. The brush tips on these markers are quite nice, and I think I'll just... yeah, let's just start with this. And then we'll pop a little bit in these little leaf sections as well. Well, if those are meant to be hands, those are the worst looking hands I've ever seen. Okay. Okay, so I've got some schminke masking fluid here. And basically what I'm going to do is just section off a few dots on the paper. Oh my goodness. Well, that's going on the blooper reel. What I was going to say was I was going to mask off just a couple of spots here and there, and that will just look like little, little drops of snow. So we'll try that up here. Oh, this is wayward. So like on the tops of a couple of the petals here, maybe. And I was about to say, I really like this masking fluid because it's really easy to control. Ah, that's funny. Yeah. Normally it's very easy to control. Goodness me. Yeah, so I was just going to have a bit, one or two like little strands here, because we're going to put some grass in there. It's all fun and games till someone loses an eye. And let's have one at the back here as well. Oh, at least I can laugh at myself. Ever the consummate professional, ladies and gentlemen. So this is pretty dry now. My fingers are even more blue than they were before. So I'm going to take my mid-tone, and we'll just start adding in a little bit of life to this, and I'm just going to take my wet brush now and see what happens. I'm not sure how much of this is going to lift the layer underneath, and again it's back to this, it's not really, it is shifting, but it's not doing anything crazy exciting. Now, people do say to me all the time, see when I review any kind of water-soluble medium that isn't watercolour, one of the first things that everyone says is, oh, but you can just put it onto a palette and use it. It kind of defeats the purpose of it being a water-soluble medium then, because the whole point of it is that it's in a different form. So if you're having to go back to putting it on a palette, you're kind of just reverting to that watercolour form, and to me it's just, there's no point in it, because you can just as quite easily use a an actual watercolour. So I kind of like, I don't want to do that if I can help it, because you can do that with a lot of mediums, like, oh, mix it on a palette. Of course you can. That's why people use palettes in the first place. That is just my personal opinion. And again, just because I'm not a marker person, really. A bit more traditional in that sense. Okay, so we'll let that do its thing for a wee while. So what I'm thinking is, I'm going to put the bulk of the colour in that side there. And then I'm just going to grab a little bit of water and I am going to cover the area that I've done and just pull it out. And I just want to see how that dries, to be perfectly honest. And then in this bottom section here, I'm not going to use any water on this section. I'm just going to use this as a straight marker. And the brush nib is fabulous for this because it lets you get into the little tight spaces. And the marker is sitting really well on the paper. You know, it's not wayward, it's not spreading out, it's behaving itself incredibly well. Did I actually have a petal up through there? That might be a problem, but okay. And then on this side here, I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to put this down this side, and then grab my water. And just try and pull this out and see what happens. I'll have to leave those to dry before I continue on. Now, this petal's dry, this one isn't a petal, this leaf is dry, this one is not. So I want to start thinking about the glittery aspect of this. Yeah, so just thinking about some snow in the background. I would actually like a really light grey colour. Now, we don't have that in our markers, but we do have a massive selection of Julia's paints, and she has a lot of delicate and not so delicate greys. So even if we just pick one of them, so we've got Elizabeth. It's so much more exotic when Julia pronounces these names than when I do it, because I say it like a Scottish person. Yeah, so if we just, and again, you'll barely be able to see that, I wouldn't think, but if I just pop some of this in like various spots here, maybe not even paying that much attention to where I'm putting it down, you know, get that sort of casual feel to it, and there would be a bit more of a disturbance round where our little flower has poked up here, the little Colour Cave gem type flower, and we can maybe layer that, you know, that up as we go along. I'm kind of curious as what's going to happen if I try and blend these blues into each other, because they do seem very, very pigmented. So, you know, I do this and that's fine, and then grab the next colour. I don't know what the next colour down is. Maybe this one? And then use the darkest one at the bottom. May live to regret this, but that's okay. And then if I just grab my paintbrush and try and blend these together. Okay. Interesting. Pretty. Okay, so I'm going to have to do like every other... Oh, this is going to get complicated. Whose idea was this? So I've got a petal here. And that was my bad. That was like my total boo-boo there. So I'm just going to have to live with that one. See, I find working with these pens really awkward. I'm not great with stuff like this because I've always got the paranoia that I'm going to drop them. Just because my motor skills for quick movements like that with my left hand isn't great, as beautifully demonstrated there. But if I just take my time here, and it's like, I tried the, what are those other markers called? Good grief. The chameleon markers where they've got the colour change type, swap them about job. And it was the dexterity that was involved in it. When I'm using a paintbrush with my hand, it's fine. But it's the switching about, and my poor left hand here just can't cope with it. Look, I've managed to get ink on myself there, and that was me trying to rescue the marker that I just dropped. So this, like, I don't know, I think it's a bit strong to say it stresses me out. It doesn't stress me out, but I find it very difficult, and to me art should be a relaxing pursuit, and I really do not find that kind of thing all that relaxing. These colours are lovely together though. They've really thought about what shades to put in these, you know, in these sets of markers as a trio. And I'm quite enjoying that. I think it's quite nice. but the actual practicalities of using them as water-based markers, I do believe is questionable. But that's lovely, look, that's come out really nice. Oh. Now the thing is as well, if you had some sort of light source, I would want to lift some of this paint. And I want to try it when it's dry, because I usually find that that's when you really get a good grasp of the actual lifting properties of the specific paints, because it's easy enough to lift paint off most things when it's wet. Okay, I think these bits in here are dry, so I'll pop these ones out the road, and I'm back to this pink set. And it's the hot pink I haven't used yet, so it's like the lightest pink. So let's pop a dod of that in there. A dod usually refers to a lump of something. You know, you talk about like a dod of bread or a dod of clay. That's once again, a very descriptive Scottish word. It's very difficult to use these side by side without picking up the colour next door like that. A little bit of bleed. I suppose that gives it a little bit of character, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm just going to use that excuse anyway. So I've got this section in here. And I'm having to talk to myself here, see, because I didn't necessarily erase all of my construction lines. I'm talking to myself because I'm trying to figure out what I've got placed where here. I think with the pinks, I feel like this hot pink kind of cheapens this combination. It's garish is probably a bit harsh, but it's yeah, it makes it feel like a cheap combination of markers, even though these don't feel like cheap markers, like they really, really don't. But yeah, I just kind of get that gist from them. And I know I'm being nitpicky now, guys, like I realise that. Now these back petals are just going to be, you're just going to see this pale blue colour. So, well, pale blue, the aqua blue. So I'm just going to grab a bit of that and then go in with my brush here. If you don't go over the whole section, you do get that weird sort of, you know, you can see where you've put the marker down and it looks kind of like really unfinished. I'm trying to avoid that as well. Take that along there. That's a sensible place to put that line. And if I go up in there, but I also want the next blue down because you can see like a weeny bit of that in there. Yeah, you can really tell the areas where you've activated the marker and where you haven't, so you kind of have to go over the whole thing. And I've got a bleed line there, like I can't really do anything about that because it's just where it's stoppered up against the masking fluid. So there's that. Right, okay, lifting properties now. So I've got a damp brush here and I just want to see if I can lift. And the answer is yes, which is what I was hoping for. Because I always think that helps to listen to me talking like I know what I'm saying about watercolour. But I think being able to lift, it just helps you get a bit of dimension. Especially if you are on the more amateur side of watercolour painting like me. Like, I don't have the ability to create a lot of depth in my watercolour paintings yet. And it's just because I don't spend enough time doing it. So the ability to be able to lift what you've put down not only helps you correct mistakes, which I make a lot of, but it also lets you pick out those highlights as well if you want to bring a bit of, you know, a bit more light and dark to what you're doing. And this colour is just like bleeding straight back into, oh, right, there we go. That's maybe a bit too much lifting though. So the thirsty brush isn't so great, but actually lifting with tissue seems to be the favourable option here. And I'm feeling there as well, like I don't actually have to blend that with any water. It's kind of just blended itself. But this side is going to be darker because I've got a feeling the light's coming from over here somewhere, just like accidentally what I've picked out on this side and the way that this has dried. So that makes me feel as well like I should really darken down because that facet's going to be facing like that. Honestly, this is probably my worst nightmare. It's like, make me do watercolour but with markers as well. It's like, let's pick all the things that Gem's not very good at. Oh boy. So I've only got a damp brush here. I don't want to take too much away from this. Does that look better? Not really. But see now as well, this is what I want to do here is I really want to, I'm going to use a different paintbrush because that's not ideal. Okay, here's another, this is just another generic synthetic brush, but it's a clean brush. I tell you which brushes, just while we're on the subject, which brushes are really good for lifting. See the sea white synthetic ones with the white bristles? These brushes are great for lifting paint. I've got a couple of them now. I've got a smaller one as well. I actually really like those brushes and they're not expensive. I do seem to favour cheaper paintbrushes though, and again, I don't know whether it's because I'm inexperienced or whatever, but when it comes to watercolour, I seem to get on better with cheap brushes. Says a lot about me, doesn't it? I can see me going in here with like white gouache or something because I'm going to have to make that shiny, but that's okay. But we've got these greens here and I feel like, well, in here obviously it's going to be really dark, so I can just do this with the marker, you know, and not activate it, and just really kind of add in what I feel would be a bit more oomph to what's going on. It's a bit of a lacklustre stock, isn't it? Maybe I'll put a line down this side and put a bit of water on it. Yeah, I'm not getting as much movement once the markers are on the paper as I would like. And while this is wet, I'm just going to kind of like assist this over here. Okay, and this side, I don't really want as much dark green going on here. Again, this one's kind of like more in the light, but we do want it to be darker than it is. So I've got this kind of watered down. Maybe I can just add in a bit while the paper's wet and just kind of let it, you know, do its thing. It's just poked its way up out of the ground. Everything's wonderful. See, now I'm just at the stage where I'm totally just like using the markers and it's actually not making that much difference. Maybe bring that around just to make that a bit more interesting because they seem to be settling well on the paper together. You see what I mean? Like it's, yeah, they're just all kind of like sinking into each other of their own accord, and it looks okay. It's not great, but I do have to do something about this here though. Goodness me. Now this side is going to be a little bit darker anyway. But every time I put water near it, it is diluting the paint. Marker, paint, I don't know what you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, but I just feel as if it's kind of ruining stuff a little bit. But I'm trying to get some sort of variation here. So I'm going to keep the darkest blue. Was it this one? That's teal. Is that the darkest one? See, these are really close together. No, that's the darkest one. Okay. And I'm just going to bring this right down in here. I will blend that all together. And I want to go, this is probably a really bad idea, but I want to go into that yellow colour. Because obviously that will mix to make green somewhere in the middle. I know it's kind of greenish anyway, so. Oh my, this might have been a huge mistake. There we go. Okay. See how that's kind of like bringing out the paler colour a little bit, just because I'm lifting a wee bit? Ideal. I think that's the prettiest part of this entire picture. Oh god, that's pretty bad, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, right. Let's get on to the fun part. Right, let's start with the snow because that's what we know best. Now it is going to be much more subtle here than it is on the black, but that's kind of what I'm after. Because if anybody's looked at nice crisp snow, you can't always see what's going on. So I'm just kind of roughly going round the outside of these areas where I've marked in grey. And it's so subtle, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And just the way the paper's sitting tilted in the light just now, it's like I can see this perfectly. I can see where it's going down. And I appreciate that you probably can't. And down the bottom here, I'm going to put it on pretty much this whole bottom area. And it's so that it kind of grounds the flower, because at the moment it just looks as if it's floating in thin air. And I'm going to put a little bit more grey around there as well. Invisible Painting by Gem at the Colour Cave. She's just wafting her brush across the paper. Now if I tilt it, can you see that in the light? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So just under the bottom of our little flower here, I'm going to take a little bit more Elizabeth. And I just want to, because it's almost like a bit too subtle there. Again, you don't tend to get many cast shadows in the snow for obvious reasons, unless you're in some really bright sunlight. But we need some sort of indicator that this little magical flower does actually belong in the ground. And that's something I can always rely on Julia's paints. They will like blend out really well. So if you go in a bit too heavy-handed, because a lot of our colours are really pigmented, and if you're using them straight off the palette, sometimes, you know, they come out a little bit stronger than you think they're going to, and you're like, oh geez. Yeah, you can, as long as you're working on good paper, obviously, you can play away with those to your heart's content. Okay, that's a bit better, and we've got our shimmer on the bottom now, which I'm really happy with. Now we want to make this jewel shimmery. That is the most important part. And I'm just going to run a layer of that over this middle section, and I'll leave that to dry. Now I'm just trying to do this very quickly. and it's so that I don't upset the paint underneath. But I can tell you straight away that the bottom layer of paint is coming off on my brush, so that's mildly problematic. We'll try not to make it problematic though. I'm not doing every single petal because I don't want it to just, I don't want to lose the effect. So I'm taking one of the other colours here, which is Castor, and I'm just going to have a little set of special magical bubbly bits just floating up here. Not for any particular reason other than I want to. So this to me is really like, it's almost like a hidden picture, and the snow hides everything, so that's where I feel that I'm justified in that. Okay, I need to get my masking fluid off somehow. There we go. So that's worked really well on this part. I feel like the white isn't strong enough, so to remedy that, I've just grabbed a little tube of white gouache. I've been using white gouache for highlights for years. You know, since I started colouring in 2000 and whatever, 15, 16. I've tried gel pens, I've tried paint markers, and nothing quite compares to the starkness of plain old gouache. Again, I'm using one of these little Sea White synthetic brushes just because they're really good. And I can add in, you know, a little bit more of this snow that's maybe landed on some of these petals, or it's just stuck to the petals because it's, you know, it's pushed up through the ground. And I can do it in much, much finer areas here without having to block off huge parts of the painting. But I thought as well, just to get a little bit of contrast between some of these petals down here. Now I'm keeping it really dry deliberately because what it will do is it'll rub up against the texture of the paper and it actually looks a bit more like snow rather than just like this massive solid white line. See, if I just pull that down there, do you see that there? That's exactly what I was thinking of. And I do just take this straight out the tube. If you want a smoother, slicker effect, you can mix it with a little bit of water. I tend not to though. Again, just a fan of texture in general. That's why I like to use coloured pencils. So you can see there, it's just helping me split up these petals a wee bit as well. Maybe right on the fingers. You're talking about jazz hands. Somebody said that when I was talking about the tentacles in the last colouring chat video, I was talking about tentacles and I did this, I went tentacles, and they said it was like jazz hands, and I'm like, no, it's tentacles, it's not that is jazz hands, it's tentacles. Anyway, tentacle jazz hands, why not? Okay, so pulling off the rest of this. I nearly said masking tape there, oh gem. Masking fluid. That's left me with a few gaps there, which I'm quite happy with as well. So yeah, I'm just going to stop there because this is fun and I've kind of got my flower together. I honestly, genuinely think that I will end up redoing this and I will do it in pencil because I'll make a much better job of it. And I think this is the kind of thing that would probably look quite good as a sticker. Or maybe even a postcard. If you have any thoughts on that, you can absolutely by all means let me know in the comments. I just don't feel that competent, especially with things like these markers. The colours are amazing. I'm just not that adept at using stuff like this because it's not something that I would use. And I'm sitting here with my gouache and I'm like, oh, I can put another little bit in there. And I keep wanting to do things like this. And I don't think I'm actually adding any value to the picture itself. It's just me wanting to continue to mess about because I don't know when to stop. And that's part of my problem with paint. It's like, instead of actually learning to do it properly, I'm just like, well, I'll just see where it takes me, and then I'm frantically trying to fix things because I think it should look better. And again, like, I'm thinking on this jewel here, there should be some sort of highlight down this side, and that should be a much more solid. So if I tilt this in the light now, you can see where all the glittery lovely paint is that belongs to Miss Julia, and it's just such a subtle effect and I love it so much. It's right up my alley because I do like glittery shiny things, but I don't like mega glitter. So this to me is perfect, and say on white paper it is so subtle and it just makes for a really nice picture. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with my imaginary flower, and maybe we'll have to give it some sort of name. And I don't mean like a person name, I mean like a plant name. So if you've got any suggestions for that, please leave them down in the comments section below. Now I want to sign my name on this. I don't really want to do it in glittery paint because then you're really not going to see it. But what I can do is I can lift some of the Luna, which is the metallic watercolour of Julia's. I am sitting here looking out this cave window and this sky looks suspiciously like it's going to snow. Do not snow on me. I do not want to be snowed on any longer. It's so going to snow. And I have to film this and show you guys, and you'll agree, and I bet you it does snow. So there you go, out the cave window. You're telling me that sky over there does not look sinister? Yeah, it looks sinister. I'm like all over the place today. Do you know what it is? It's Saturday and I didn't have any proper work today, and I had very little to do outside, so I've actually almost a lady of leisure today, but not quite. And I think I'm just getting a bit giddy with myself. It's such a novelty for me though, and it's nice to be able to sit and do something like this where it's, oh, let's just paint and see where it goes, because I don't get to do that very often either. Okay, so I'm on my way here with signing my name. There we go, so my name is there. It is not blatantly obvious, it doesn't stick out. I love these paints. Yeah, so if you'd like to try some of Julia's paints, this is a broken one. It's a broken one. But I have this dot card in the stash shop if you would like to purchase these paints to try for yourself. And these dots last ages. It's not a case of you're going to paint 2 pictures with them, there's going to be none left. But it lets you choose some colours, and if you like them, you can go to Julia's shop and buy them. Love to hear your thoughts on my completely invented snowflower here. I've had great fun today and I want to thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all the support from all of you all the time because you're a brilliant bunch of people. And I shall see you back in the cave on Sunday for another video. So have a good day everyone. Please stay safe, look after each other, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.